We're going to be talking to Robert Neyman. He's Senior Policy Analyst and National Coordinator at Just Foreign Policy. Actually, if you go now to www.justforeignpolicy.org, you're going to be entertained by this amazing website. Robert worked as a policy analyst and researcher for the Center for Economic and Policy Research. He has a blog on Huffington Post, and we're going to be talking to Robert about the developments in Somalia. Actually, I was reading his blog, and he had an interesting article said, "Forget accountability for Somali pirates." Good morning, Robert. Always good to have you on the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I know you talk about a lot of issues, like your latest, I think you wrote something about opening relations with Cuba and handshake with Chavez. But I really would like to talk about Somalia, because all we know and all the coverage in the mainstream media is that there is a bunch of pirates and they are doing bad things. Is it bigger and larger than just that?
It is bigger. And the key thing for people to understand is that no expert, even government officials in the United States, in Europe, believes that there is any international military or enforcement solution to the problem of Somali piracy. It's a symptom of the anarchy and lack of effective government in Somalia. And the only solution is to help the Somali government take control of its national territory. Even Secretary of Gates said this. And a lot of people, I think, drew the wrong conclusion from kind of, the several days of TV excitement around the standoff between the boat of pirates and the U.S. Navy and the rescue of the U.S. captain. And people think, well, see, force works. We saved our guy, and now let's get serious and send some more force. And that's totally unrealistic. The sea is wide. There's no way that the U.S. Navy or a combination of navies is going to put together enough ships to patrol the entire Somali coast. There are a lot of potential pirates. There are a lot of poor young men in northern Somalia who don't have other economic opportunities. The only thing that is going to end Somali piracy is effective national government in Somalia. And we started to see some steps in this direction. There was just a donors conference in Belgium where there was the most kind of substantial international commitment to Somalia than it's been in many years. The Somali government now, which still doesn't control its national territory, but it's got the better chance than it's had in some time. There's kind of a coalition government now that includes both the previously internationally supported transitional government that was created by the United Nations, as well as part of the former Islamist opposition. So Somalia now has it's got a lot of terrible problems, suffered most recently from the Ethiopian invasion of 2006, backed by the Bush administration. But now it has the best chance for peace and national reconciliation and an effective government than it's had in many years. And the last thing we need to be thinking about is a unilateral U.S. military action, either against the villages on land where the pirates are based, or against military strikes on training camps. This has been tried by the U.S. military over the past few years, military strikes in Somalia, and it has not worked out well.
I was just reading this morning something by the Prime Minister of Somalia saying, well, we've had economic sanctions on us for more than 16 years now. And he says we're using AK-47 and they are using AK-47. So we have equal firepower. And he was asking the international community and the U.S. to lift the economic sanctions so they can import more weapons, so they can use more lethal weapons on these pirates. Do you agree with his demand and request?
Well, it makes me nervous, so I won't say that I will agree with it, but I will say that the request should be taken seriously. Let me say that. But the main thing I think that the United States and Europe and the Arab League and the African Union should be focused on is supporting the Somali government in its efforts to broaden its coalition government. One of the former opposition leaders has just returned to the country, and the Somali president is trying to include him in the government. I think this is the path that's most likely to lead to help. And the broader the Somali government becomes politically, the more forces it includes inside it, the better that I'll feel about military assistance to that government. The danger of arming the government when that political reconciliation process is not more complete is feeding into the dynamics of civil war that the country has known for so long. So the bulk of the work is political, is increasing the political capacity of the government to unite all the factions into a single government that controls the country.
If you're just joining us, this is True Talk on WMNF 88.5. We're speaking to Robert Naiman, is Senior Policy Analyst at the National Coordinator at Just Foreign Policy. You can find them at justforeignpolicy.org. And we're talking about Somalia. Let's backtrack or backstep a little bit. In what created this situation where there's no rule of law in Somalia from the early 90s, even during the Clinton administration, America intervened in Somalia and was forced to leave. And we remember those images of people being dragged, our Marines being dragged in the streets there. And later on, there was no rule of law. Eventually, there was a rise to some of the Islamic groups, and they started forming what's called Islamic courts. So those courts can handle the problems, and that brought some stability and some rule of law. But America and the West were not happy with Islamists ruling the nation, and they toppled it with the help of the Ethiopians. Ethiopia invaded that region, and you're back to what was going on in the 90s. So how much did the United States military interventions in the early 90s and then recently, a couple of years ago, contribute to the rise of piracy?
Well, the Islamic Courts Union government of 2006, it didn't control the entire country, but it controlled most of the country, and it did effectively put a stop to piracy. So in an immediate sense, the United States, by encouraging and supporting the Ethiopian invasion and overthrowing that government and creating a new, civil war and insurgency against the Ethiopian occupying troops, actually directly moved the country from a situation where piracy was stopped to a situation where piracy was flourishing. So you can draw a direct line from the U.S. / Ethiopian intervention to the piracy problem today. Now, even under the Bush administration, and that was a terribly disastrous policy, terribly unjust and disastrous policy. It was opposed at the time by Representative Payne, who's the chair of the House Africa Subcommittee, and it was justified by the Bush administration on the grounds that this Islamic Courts Union people, this is it's a coalition of people, and some of these people have links with Al Qaeda, and we can't tolerate that. Therefore, that Somalia have this kind of government. Of course, it's not really. The U.S. doesn't really have a problem with Islamists per se. The U.S. is allied with lots of Islamists all over the world, including Saudi Arabia and Iraq and so on. But the issue from the point of view of the Bush administration was some of these folks have ties with Al Qaeda, and we have to. And this is an opportunity actually for us to go after them, which they did in the context of the Ethiopian invasion. So just as the country had maybe an opportunity for stability that hadn't had in years, the U.S. Toppled the government and brought back more war. Now, even under the Bush administration, they corrected the policy somewhat. I think they recognized that the Ethiopian invasion had led to disaster. At least 10,000 Somalis were killed.